All right, very good. Welcome to this the first session of our mid-level CTE Administrator Cohort. I'm Mark Boshier, and I'm Director of Training and Technical Assistance for the Career and Technical Association of Texas. I start this job full-time come July 1st, and this cohort is going to meet the third Thursday of every month. So this May is our first meeting. As I said before, this group came about from recommendations by CTAT members and the CTAT board, and we're going to start this session, and I'm going to try to be respectful of your time, and we'll try to keep this entire session to an hour or less. However, I'm going to stay in here, and I'll stay in here till however long you need to answer questions at the end, but we might stop recording at about 45 or 50 minutes. Well, sometimes I feel like at the mid-level school for the gifted, and I always, or many times I will use a slide to illustrate that fact. And if you can tell, this kid here is pushing on the door when he should be pulling on with the handle, and that makes that extra funny. I'm pretending like you're all laughing whether you are or not. Okay. Welcome. This is our first session of CTE Middle Administration Training. And session one, we kind of kicked it around a little bit, and everybody always wants to know funding. And like I said, if you've been a director for 3 or 4 or 5 years, this is going to be like a second grade math to you. But I'd love to have you stay in here, and if you have some insight, we'll certainly use you in the presentation. So we're talking about CTE funding, but in specifically your state allotment. In future meetings, we'll get into your federal or your Perkins allotment. We'll talk about your money that you get for certification reimbursement. But today we're just covering the basic, good old CTE state allotment. And if you look on the, you can find this information. It's in Texas Education Code. It's on the TEA website. But school districts are eligible to receive weighted funding for eligible full-time students, full-time equivalent students. And full-time equivalent is called an FTE. In approved career and technology, the old term that's still in law, career and technology education, or CTE program. Districts basically receive 35% more funding for CTE full-time equivalent students than for regular funding. And another way of saying that is that CTE funding is weighted with a 1.35 multiplier. Additionally, schools get an additional $50 for students who are enrolled in 2 or more advanced CTE courses for 3 or more credits. And they also get in those advanced courses, students that are in P-Tech academies or enrolled in New Tech network schools. And that's just an extra $50 per FTE. The combination of these 3 funding sources make up a district's entire CTE allotment. A CTE allotment applies to students in grades 7 through 12 who take an approved career and technical education course as designated with an H in the CTE course column of the Education Data Standards in Section 4. And if you're an administrator in here, or if you're a counselor or anybody had any experience, most people just refer to this as the CO22 table. And it is in 48106. And Texas Education Code 48106, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Okay, so we know that a student, in order to earn weighted funding or to get career tech weighted funding, we just said that the course in the Texas Data Standards has to have an H. Well, and of course, this slide, this whole PowerPoint will be available cohort members. But any of you that's been in this amount of time, you've had to learn the Texas Education Data Standards and where it is. And this is the CO22 table. And this link at the bottom will take you to that. Here, I think I was maybe 2.5 years into it before I even knew what that guy was. Of course, we didn't have the internet when I first became a director. We had to do stuff on stone tablets. But seriously, this is something that you had to order or you had to have or you picked up at the service center. It really took me a while to even find this guy. But this is one of the testaments of the Bible that you must have as a CTE administrator. And so here we are in the Texas Student Data System, and section 4, description of the codes. And I just randomly scrolled down to the CTE section. We'll talk about this when we get into the CO22 table. We'll have a special session on that and how to use it in the Student Attendance County Handbook. But current technical courses start with either a 130 code or a 27 code. And here we are in section 4, and you can see all is it eligible? It has the code as far as service ID number. It has the long name of the course that they refer to as the translation. It tells you whether or not the course is eligible for high school credit. The short abbreviation, this is the actual letter transcript complete the course. The course units available, and that is the number of credits that a student receives when they complete the entire course. And then the CTE course code here that is either going to be H or an M. And I always say, the H is high school eligible and the M is middle school only. So this H signifies that this course is eligible for the 1.25 weighted CTE allotment. And so any course in this P data standard that has the H is going to receive that funding if they meet the time requirement. We'll go over that in a minute. But as you can see here, this is an agricultural science course, veterinary med applications. It has an H, so that would get funding. This is a course like investigating careers, first, second time, third time, fourth time, and in college and career readiness. This starts with a 27, so that makes it a CTE course, career development. Just like a co-op course, it's a generic, usually like the 130 courses, the courses that start with a 130 service ID code, they will, they're aligned with career clusters. Whereas a 127 course like investigating careers or career prep, they can pretty much align with any career cluster or program, or in some instances, program of study. So this M has, these career courses have an M that's middle school credit only, and because it has an M instead of an H, it signifies the course is not eligible for weighted funding. So now that we know which students in which courses receive the CTE allotment, let's see what they are allotted. How much do they get? And this is your CTE allotment formula. The CTE weighted funding equals the number of eligible CTE FTEs, those in H courses, times the district adjusted allotment or their basic allotment, or times 1.35, which is the multiplier, the weighted funding. So that's your basic state allotment formula. This is just a complex formula I took off to make this one look not so bad. Okay, so FTE stands for a full-time equivalent. The full-time equivalent is defined as 30 hours of contact a week or 1,080 hours of contact per year. And that's between a student and CTE personnel. They're in a class, a CTE class with the CTE teacher. there's 30 contact hours times 36 weeks, which is 180 days. And 1,080 contact hours per year makes a full-time student. And so another way of saying that, and the rule of 6 is going to be very important, but if you take 6 hours times 180 days, then of course you're going to come up with 1,080 contact hours per year. Oops. I froze here a second. Okay. Each student enrolled in one or more CTE courses is assigned a code of a V1 or a V6. A V1 through a V6. They can be a V2, a V3, a V4, a V5, or a 4.6. But no single student makes the V6 code, because once they get to V6, they're considered full-time. And of course, that indicates the average number of hours per day that a student spends in a CTE course. This code, their V1 or through V6 code, basically determines the number of contact hours a student generates per day and ultimately per year, and the resulting portion of the FTE that student generates. Sorry, I had to go back 1 second. So if FTE stands for a full-time equivalent, and we're looking at this chart right here, you can see that a V1 student is generating 1 contact hour per day. And for 180 days, then that means that student is earning 0.167. And another way of saying 0.167 is 1/6. And so it takes 6 hours to make a full-time student. So if you have a student by chance that is in a co-op and a 3-hour welding pre-lab, then they're getting a V6, they're getting 6 contact hours per day. And so that makes that one student could be 1 FTE. And so that's a pretty good chart. And again, all of these will be available, but so this requires this chart, and the way that they're doing it, this is actually on the TEA website. But when you use this formula, the way that they're asking you to use it, you have to calculate it based on each student. And to me, that is a difficult way of doing it. And it seems to me like it's easier to just do it with class enrollment. And so if this formula looks super complicated, I've been doing this about 20 years, and I mean, I can follow it, but here's what they're telling you real quickly. They have 75 students earning 1 contact hour times 180 days eligible, and that's 13,500 contact hours. And of course, you got 21 V2, 18 3V, and 5 V5 students. So they're generating all this contact hours, and they divide that by 1,080, which is basically a full-time of 6 times 180, and then you come up with 32.667. To me, that's the long way around getting in the boat. So I'm going to show you another way which I can do it. Of course, this way that you're looking at, it's on the TA website, and we'll make this available in our consortium folder for easy reference. But to me, that's the difficult way of doing it. And so if you'll look here, what I'm trying to tell you here is don't shoot me yet. And if you're looking at these, this guy here is telling us that these uniforms might not have been such a good idea because they have targets, and it's making it real easy for the guys to hit them with arrows. And so that's my way of saying don't shoot yet. I'm pretending like y'all are laughing. Okay, so here we are, and let's break down this formula just a little bit better. Try and simplify it a little bit. A full-time student is an old term. It's based on a student attending school for 6 periods in a day. And 6 periods is always the key. And this thing's been around for 30 years. And if you graduated when I did, you graduated with 19 credits. So 6 periods in a day was more than enough to get you through school. You couldn't earn your endorsement now by just taking 6 periods a day for 4 years. But anyway, it's an old term, and so 6 periods a day makes a student full-time or a full-time equivalent or a full-time student. V codes are assigned to courses based on the amount of time a student is in an H course or CTE course that is eligible for high school credit. Most, and I'm saying most, there are some exceptions, but most course V codes directly correlate to the number of students being earned, assuming the class is meeting the minimum time requirements as laid out in the student attendance accounting handbook. But most courses do. For example, this course in course units, again, we're back, the column gives the amount of credits received when completing the corresponding CTE course. Now, as you can see here, this course, it looks like Advanced Animal Science, gives the units when receiving completing corresponding CTE course. Students earn 1 credit for completing Advanced Animal Science. And so since the credits generally correspond with the number of hours that a course is being taught in a day, then Animal Science has a V code of 1. And so any student in Animal Science would be receiving a V1. And of course, if they were in Animal Science and Agribusiness Marketing, you know, they could get a V2 because students can duplicate in there as well, as if you didn't know. And so any student in Advanced Animal Science earns 1 credit and 1 contact hour. So if a student was in Agribusiness Management and Marketing with a lab, you can see that that course is earning 2 credits. And in general, the numbers of credits correspond with the number of contact hours being given. And so that student in that course would be a V2. And so that course is coded a V2. And this is really sounding more difficult than I think it is. So if you're in your student management system, this is Skyward. And I'm simply using this is because my district used Skyward, but I'm sure it's the same with any. But each course is coded with the V code or the vocational ed contact hours. And so here's an example. A student in this course that is coded a 1 is receiving 1 vocational contact hours. And so that Advanced Animal Science would be coded a 1. This class, where a student, say they're in Agribusiness Management with a lab, this course would be assigned to 2. Automatically, your student management system would be assigning each student in that class a V2. And again, they can accumulate V codes up until they reach a 6, which is semi-rare. So while a student is in Advanced Animal Science, a 1 credit class, they're earning 1 contact hour. A student that is enrolled in Agribusiness Management with a lab, a 2 credit class, is earning 2 contact hours or 2 voc ed hours. And then some practicum courses are taught for 3 credits, which is a maximum, as we know, that students can earn credits. for a single course. Those courses are coded V3s, and students earn 3 contact hours while they're enrolled in those courses. So if a student was in career prep for 3 and they were in agribusiness the next day with a lab for 2, that student would be a V5. Again, the maximum that any individual student may earn is 6 contact hours, because once they reach 6, they're considered full-time. And again, everything I'm telling you as far as funding is contingent that the course meets for the minimum amount of time as defined in the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook. And as you can see, here's the course of the minimum amount. In order for a student to earn a V1, they have to be in that class for 45 minutes every day on average. To be a V2, they have to be in 90 minutes on average, and then a V3 would have to be a minimum of 135 minutes every day to earn contact hours. As you can see, it's important to note here that 45 minutes a day is considered this is very common on block schedules. Classes will meet for 90 minutes every other day, which averages to 45 minutes a day. And so that's why they have these minutes per day. If you were a 7-period day, most times they'll meet about 50 to 55 minutes. So they have this range in here that gives you some flexibility for your scheduling. So FTE stands for full-time equivalent. Let's look at a couple of examples. Remember, in this context, a student is attending, or a full-time student attends 6 hours per day. So if you have 100 V1 animal science students, that's also the same as saying 100 contact hours. If you take that 100 students and divide by 6, because that's the number of students or the number of hours that it takes to make a full-time student. So if you divide that by 6, you will get 16.7. So 100 students in a V1 course equals 16.7 FTEs. In the agribusiness with a lab, which is a V2 course, which means you're generating 2 hours, 2 vocational ed contact hours. If that agribusiness with the lab course has 100 students, then 100 divided by 3, and I say 3 because that's the number of 2-hour students that makes a full-time student. 3 times 2 is 6. So if you divide that by 3, then that equals 33. So 100 students in a V2 course equals 33. Career prep, which if a student is working 15 hours a week, of course, that's a V3, and they're getting 3 credits and 3 contact hours. So if it has 100 students enrolled, then you take that 100 students, because 2 divided by 2, because that's the number of 3-hour students that makes a full-time student. 2 times 3 is 6. Remember, we're always looking for the magic 6. So if you divide 100 by 2, it equals 50. I checked my calculator to make sure it was right. It equals 50. So 100 students at V3 course equals 50 FTEs. Now, when I was reading through that, I thought to myself, well, I better add this one slide just to make sure. And so this is why this is a special added slide towards the FTE breakdown. Number of students required to generate 1 FTE, which is the same as 6, 6. So 1-hour course, it takes 6 students. 1 times 6 is 6. In a 2-hour course, it takes 3 students. 3 times 2 equals 6. And in a 3-hour course, it takes 2 students. 3 times 2 equals 6. And this kid's brain hurts right here. That's a young Rick Gracie. And so now let's see if we can go in and get some guided practice. So Money Matters is a 1-credit course taught during 3 55-minute periods each day. Total enrollment for these three sections is 62. So how many FTEs are being generated? If you would go into the chat box and just type in your answer. Robin, I can't see the chat box. Are we getting some participation in there?
Yes, and there are some questions, and so some folks are answering questions as it goes along, but we're going to unmute and have Q&A in a little while. But yes, they are plugging in their answers at 10.33.
Well, let's see if that's right. Good. 10.33 is what they're saying on the chat box. And look at that. You take 62 and you divide it by 6, and you get 10.33 FTEs. Bravo. All right, let's try another one. We have a service ID code 130205505, practicum in health science with an extended practicum lab. And this is a 3-credit course taught in a 3-hour block for 165 minutes a day. So it meets the time requirement. The total enrollment for this course is 28 students. How many FTEs are being generated? If you would, type that in your chat box real quick.
They're saying 14.
14. Man, I'm telling you, there's some quality instruction going on, I bet you.
Okay, can you walk us through that, please, for those of us that may need it to go a little bit slower?
Yes. Okay, so again, what we're trying to do is to get the total number of FTEs. This is a 3-hour course, and there's 28 students. Mm-hmm. And remember, it takes 6 hours to reach a full-time equivalent.
Okay.
So if we have a 3-hour block, then 28 divided by 2, because it would take 2 students to get to 6 hours. 2 times 3 is 6. Mm-hmm. You follow me there? That's really the only tricky part.
Yeah, I have that.
It would take 2 students at 3 contact hours to get to 6. So we take 28 students and we divide by 2, and we come up with 4 FTEs. That sound pretty good?
Okay.
And we have a little more help on the way here. Okay, so we're in service ID code 1329900, firefighter 1. It's a 2-credit course taught for 2 hours a day, 110 minutes, so it meets the time requirement. 2 sections are offered, and it's has a total for both sections of 41. So how many FTEs are being offered? So it would take 3 students, 3 times 2 equals 6. It would take 3 2-hour students to equal a full-time student. So we would take the 41 students and divide by 3, and we're at 13.67 FTEs. Robin, do you feel good about moving on from the FTEs? You're kind of monitoring the chat box.
I think so.
Okay, very good. Yeah. And we have kind of a surprise for you in a little bit. And so now we move on to the second part of the formula. FTEs times the adjusted allotment times 135. So the next part of this formula is the adjusted allotment. This is a piggy bank. Pigs are usually pink like that. So here we are. Let's find out how you locate your adjusted allotment. The easiest way to find your adjusted allotment is look in your summary of finances. And we'll spend probably a session, or at least a piece of one of our sessions, going to the summary of finances. But again, this PowerPoint will be posted, and you can go to this link, or you can just Google TEA Summary of Finances. And you'll come to this screen in the Foundation School Program. You'll have to drop this pull down bar and click Summary of Finances, and then type your county district number. And you're going to come to your district's Summary of Finances. And your adjusted allotment this year is on line 18. That does change from year to year. And notice it doesn't say adjusted allotment anymore. It just says district basic allotment, but it's the same thing. And so it's 6160 for most districts. If you don't know, use the number 6160 because that's going to be 90-something% of them out there. But again, I encourage you, because this is another exercise to go in and look up your own district allotment in the Summary of Finances, because you need to have that Summary of Finances on your quick dial in your brain on how to get there and how to access that information. But again, just for today, our only purpose of using it is to find our adjusted allotment, which is $6,160. And I haven't looked at a district yet that wasn't $6,160. Okay, now you have your adjusted allotment. Back to the blackboard. You have Money Matters that has just 10 FTEs. And so this district's adjusted allotment is $6,116 with a multiplier for CTE of 1.35. So if you take 10 times $6,100, you get $61,600 times your multiplier of 1.35, then those 62 students are generating $83,160. Now, this calculation assumes 100%. If you want to be practical, and this isn't on the website anymore, but TEA used to recommend this, and they probably just forgot to add it, but to ensure a more practical estimate, allow for 5% attendance loss. And so if you take Money Matters, 10 FTEs, times your adjusted allotment, 61,000, times your multiplier, 3,160, and then you multiply that by 0.95 or 95%, you get $79,002. And so those 63 students are generating in total $79,002 in CTE funding adjusted for 5% loss. I really think that this is the best way to do it, and you're never going to be over, because some of you will have attendance better than 95%. The magic of technology. I named this section. All right, don't try to, you can do it on your phone. Probably most of you now kind of have the idea, and you can sit there and do it on your phone pretty simple. But create a spreadsheet that will do the work for you. And you can see this spreadsheet has 1 credit students, and another way of saying that's 1 hour, 2 hour students, 3 hour students. And you type in the number of students enrolled, and you come up with this. So this is the part of the presentation where I'm really going to do something daring. I'm going to attempt to switch screens. Robin, are we seeing a spreadsheet now?
Not yet. Nope, there it is.
Just like the state fair in the midway, you see something amazing every time you go. And so if you take, and we have our projected allotment is 6160, and let me show you this formula real quick. So we're going to take the number of students times 1.167, which is the same thing as dividing by 6, or multiplying by 1/6. And then we're going to adjust that 95%, because we're going to multiply this whole thing times 0.95 or 95%. And let's see if that gives us what we're looking for. So if you type in 10, you get 1.5 because it's adjusted for 95%, and those students are generating $13,000. And of course, your direct cost that the district must utilize this money for providing career and technical education programs. They have to spend 55%, which in this case would be $7,256. So let's do something a little more realistic. Let's say that you have a human service teacher, and they're teaching principles of human services, and they have 100 students. So they're generating 15.865 FTEs, and again, that's adjusted down 5% for attendance loss. And so that teacher is generating $131,000 with those 100 students. And even in direct costs, just the 55% is $72,563. So this is the part, like if we were live, I'd be saying, now is this teacher, the students in this class paying their salary? And everybody be shaking their head, yes. So let's look at one other thing. Let's look and say that we have a welding teacher that teaches a 2-hour pre-lab, and they're always complaining that other teachers have over 100 students, but this welding teacher only has 50. Well, that welding teacher, because they're teaching a 2-hour pre-lab, is generating the exact same amount of money that the 100 students in the Intro to Human Services were. And even if you have a co-op teacher, or if you're teaching cosmetology for 3 credits or health science for 3 credits, let's say that you had 33 health science students, and again, they're generating that 33 health science students in a 3-hour or 3 credit health science lab. They're generating the same amount of money as the teacher teaching the 1 credit or 1 hour principles class. And so this is a good tool to use. You know, if they're complaining about your co-op teacher not having enough students, or your pre-lab or your lab teachers not having as much, that's the reason that they get that extra money, is because they can't have that same number of students. So Robin has authorized me to make this spreadsheet available to everyone in here. And what we'll do is we'll put this on a website, or we'll email it out. And so this will save you a lot of work, I hope, in figuring your FTEs. And so now I'm going to try to Houdini back. And yep. And I'm considering that a success, Robin, if you can see the group.
I didn't realize Houdini was a verb. I like it.
It is. I just made it a verb, I think. I always tell people I rarely let the English language get in my way of making a point. All right, so now we go back to our original, and we have advanced courses. And so CTE advanced course funding equals eligible CTE FTEs times $50. So in addition to the weighted funding that we just talked about, a school district is also eligible for a flat amount of $50 per FTE students enrolled in 2 or more advanced CTE courses, or enrolled in a P-TECH Academy or a New Tech campus. Now, the P-TECH Academy, I know Richard and them have a lot in Dallas, and the New Tech network, of course, has been around a couple of years. But the main thing I'm going to show you here is this list of advanced courses. And so you can pull that up. You can use that link, pull up, and you can see that list of advanced courses. And of course, they're going to generate FTEs, and this is done automatically for you. You don't have to do anything because your student management software recognizes these service IDs, and once the number hits 2, then they're kicking in, start counting on your FTEs. And so simply, there's no reason to really dive into this. You take the FTEs from the students enrolled in the courses and you multiply that by 50 and you get your advanced allotment. All of your, and of course I'm going back to the summary of finances. The sum of CTE weighted funding and CTE advanced program funding is depicted this year, and of course this changes, on line 27, your career tech allotment. And so in this particular fictitious district, their district projected estimate is $6,184,917. And of course, your legislative projected estimate is just slightly above that. And I think the reason, Robin, those are all reading high this year is because the state projected that when the new tech apps courses were added, they went in there and bumped everybody's projection up. And I hope it holds true, but I'm not sure everybody got that news in time to get the funding. Everyone, I know some people did, but I'm not sure most people did. And so you can see line 27, that's your weighted funding versus your plus your advanced courses and PTEX and new techs. And everyone always asks, where is it in the Texas Education Code? Well, here it is. Texas Education Code, legal, and section 48.106. It'll give you exactly, it'll say exactly what I was telling you, how the courses are weighted, the basic allotment, and the formula. Why do we estimate funding? Planning staff, doing program evaluations, to justify teachers that you need to hire, to do program justifications. There's a jillion reasons. But what I want to stress here is that FTE should always be used in comparing programs. Only use individual student counts to determine how many chairs you need in the room. Because to compare apples to apples, you should always break it down into FTEs. And I know that we're going to take some question and answers, but for the cohort on the next meetings, these are the topics that we'll be using. And of course, today we said funding. We might do instructional oversight and coaching on the next one, but these are the 12 to 13 topics that we have identified for our first cohort. And this isn't this came from the task force that many of you were on. These are the topics that you said you wanted covered. Okay, questions, networking. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the gallery view so I can kind of see people.
Hey, Mark, we did have some questions. So that sheet that you showed that listed the courses, is that one that you manage, or is that a link to the TEA site?
You're talking about the advanced courses?
Yes.
No, that's a TEA website link, and you can just, I mean, you can Google it naturally, but we'll post it too in with the cohort materials. But it's just simply, there's a list of CTE advanced courses on the TEA CTE website. And you click it in, it pulls up as a PDF.
Okay, we also had another question. Is this funding used to pay teacher salaries? Where do we receive funding for technology and supplies?
All right, a great question. And so I think the question is this the money that's used to pay teacher salaries? Is that right, Robin?
Yes.
Okay, so 55% of the money has to be spent on career and technology providing programs. And the easiest way to do that is in your head, just say that that's your function 11 code. And so 11 means that it is for instruction. 31 would mean that it is for counseling. 36 would mean extracurricular. But so it's function 11, CTE instruction. And so that is teacher salaries and instructional supplies. So yes, the question is, that's the money that's used to pay teacher salaries and purchase teaching supplies and technology. So this is the good way of thinking about it. You take your money and you determine how much money you're getting. Then you take 80% of that and just assume that 80% is going to teacher salaries. And then take your total money that you get, multiply by 55%, so you get your 55%. Of that 55%, 50% will go to teacher salaries, and then the rest should be going to instructional supplies, computers, yardsticks, pig feed, whatever you can think to buy that'll teach a student.
And here's another one. Are the special ed IEP continuers who are 18 years of age and plus eligible to generate this funding if they're enrolled in a CTE course taught by a CTE teacher?
If they're enrolled in a CTE course, and so that is a career tech for educationally disabled. If they're in CTE, then CTE gets that funding. CTE, which is a CTE course that's taught with 100% special ed.
So how do some districts fund CTE in middle school?
Well, middle school funding is historically, I'm having to wrap my around because this changed this year, but historically, you could always spend your state allotment and Perkins funds in grades 7 through 12. And you could even say that, of that 55%, there's 45% that's being generated in funding and indirect. So you can use indirect money to pay for your middle school. But the middle school courses that are earning contact hours, those that are teaching for high school credit, the H courses, they're just like any other high school course. The problem is that a lot of middle schools get in trouble if they don't offer 45-minute classes. But so that's how they fund their middle school, just like they would fund their high schools.
Okay, for the $50, the bump for students enrolled in the advanced courses or in PTech, do they need to be enrolled in the courses concurrently? Or if they take an advanced course their junior year and another one their senior year, would we get the $50 in the student's senior year or both?
Now, if I'm wrong about this, I'll let you know, but I'm 99% sure that is it goes from year to year.
I think so
You
too.
don't get to, yeah.
They're asking if there will be a session on Perkins.
There will be a session on Perkins, which won't take us because there's nothing you can really do to change your Perkins funding, but it's nice to know where it comes from.
Great. And folks, you have the ability to unmute yourself if you want to hop in and ask a question, feel free.
I just want to ask, are you going to keep adding those wonderful, funny little sketches? Because I was getting a laugh through the whole thing. So that was actually pretty good.
Yes, I'm very enamored with the Farside Comics, and so I try to add those to most of my slide presentations. And one time, I took, and when Mark McClure first went to Cleveland, we were doing a slide presentation over doing teacher training at the first year. So I took and I copied that little Cleveland C off of the Cleveland ISD website. I went and pasted that on every one of those students in those Farside Comics. So I like to become involved in my Farside Comics as well. But yes, we'll have those. Ms. Baker is asking if we'll get a certification or something similar for in this cohort. We intend on providing that. And Robin, it'd be just like going to conference. We can provide continuing ed credits for this, correct?
Yes, we can.
Good question.
Should we be looking for something to sign up officially for this, or are we going to be going week to week?
We'll send out a registration link. I believe it's available already, but we can send it out.
It went out.
It's on the website. A link to register.
Now, these
On the
sessions,
CTAT website, Jamie?
Yes, under professional development.
these
Very
sessions
good.
are every third Thursday. Is that correct? So it will take us more than a year to complete the 13 topics.
Yes, and we'll look at maybe one or two of the topics. One thing that I'd like to do is work in some guest speakers, like maybe an introduction to the TEA staff, because members asked to be able to put names with faces for the TEA staff, or you guys did, task force, for those that are on the task force. So I'd like to combine a couple of topics and work that in.
Is this something that you all are planning on offering every year, or just as needed, as the need arises?
I think that the turnover is going to be so great in these mid-level positions, because these mid-level CTE administrators will move on to become CTE directors. So as long as there's a need for it, yes, ma'am, I don't see why not.
I wanted to kind of stick around towards the end because I need a little bit more one-on-one.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I went to the CTAT website to try to find where to register, and it just takes me to a list of dates, but no actual, like, I'm gonna be, like, I know for sure that I'm part of the group.
I just put the link on there on the chat box.
Oh, okay, I see it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Jamie, we could probably just send an email out to everyone on this list. Aren't you able to gather that pretty easily?
Yes.
Yeah, so everyone that was on this will send an email out telling you how to register for sure. And then watch CTAT Connect, because we'll be posting it in Connect CTAT as well.
So where do we get the video if we want to view it again? Where is it? And the slideshow?
We will post the slideshow on the web. Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, the recording usually takes about an hour and a half or so to download, and so we'll get it out no later than tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
And also, we will post this slide and the spreadsheet probably on the CTAT resources page, but I'm going to create a page just for these materials. So we'll have that no later. It just takes a couple of minutes to post, but we'll have that on there no later than tomorrow as well.
So that means that anyone that did not pay to be in this session and not paying for it, they're going to have access to it.
No, because the only people we're going to share that folder with after this one, the only people we're going to share that folder with are those that have registered.
Okay.
And the total price is 100 and that's it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you find that most, do you find that most people are just paying for it out of their own pocket?
No, ma'am. I think most of them are the district's paying for it, just like they would go to a service center.
Okay.
Pay for it as if it's a staff development that you're doing every month, and
You
it's
betcha.
$100 fee for it, and just put
Right.
staff development.
And
Yeah,
we
I
need
mean,
to join first. Do we need to
are
join
you
the
talking-
organization? Do we need to join the organization before we can enroll?
Miss Blackner, I hope that's you talking. I saw that
It
light up
is.
that box, but yeah. So yes, ma'am, if you're a non-member, we have a non-member rate, and Robin might check that, but I think it's 175 for a non-member. But we encourage you to join because, you know, the networking that you're getting, you're going to save on registration fees in a normal year by registering. So you can join as a non-member, I think, to answer your question, but slightly higher.
Hi, Mark. Do you recommend this for junior high administrators, or is the content mainly geared toward high schools?
No, ma'am, I would recommend it for junior high administrators because this is funding, and this is real kind of techie, but everyone's going to ask about funding and all the future ones. So I figure we might as well get it out of the way. But a lot of what we're doing is instructional coaching, instructional delivering, and how to make CTE instruction meaningful to students. I'm sure as the plague continues on, we're going to have more to do with digital learning. We'll add some sessions for that. So I highly recommend it for junior high people. As a matter of fact, I know that when we were starting this, probably about a third of the people that were on the task force were junior high folks.
All right, thank you.
Someone asked a little bit earlier about the time. Thursdays at 1:30 is what we'll do for the next few months. And once we get into school, if school goes back, that might be a little odd. We might have to move it to maybe 7:30 at night or 8:30 or whatever works for the biggest majority of the crowd. Ms. Kinnerum says her budget is closed until after July 1st. I don't know if that was sent to everyone, but I think we'll take POs or if you'll email Jamie, she'll take care of you one way or another.
Yeah, that'll be my situation as well as far as the budget.
Jamie, if you're still on there, does that sound fair enough? If they'll shoot you an email, you'll figure out a payment procedure?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. We still have 129 people in here. So it's 2:31. So I'm going to say we're officially over, and we'll probably stop recording if that's okay with Robin. And then if you want to stay around and ask a question, I'm just here to enjoy the Corona.